Today I'm going to show you how I made this fermented, cold smoked, semi-dried, and cooked American style pepperoni. And if you stick around to the end, I'll show you how I made this pepperoni pizza and this sausage one too. My name's Greg and welcome to the Gourmet Woodsman. Let's make some pepperoni. Today I'll be grinding meat for pepperoni 3 different ways. They're all going to use about 35% beef, about 40% pork, and about 25% back fat. My beef and pork are not super lean, which is why I'm using 25% back fat. If they were a little more lean, I would be using closer to 30% back fat. I'm going to add my beef and my back fat first. I'll stick a couple pieces of pork in there just to get the fat through. I'm going to switch bowls real quick and run the pork through. So the reason I did this separate is because I'm going to change my plate. Stick this here to keep it from going straight in there, but I want to grind this beef and the back fat through this 4mm, this finer die that I have. It does change the texture. So for now, I can stick this away into the refrigerator. I'll be using Flavor of Italy for the starter culture for my pepperoni. And as you can see, this one does not say what bacteria are actually in it. And honestly, it doesn't even say what temperature it likes to be at for fermenting. So I guess it's a little bit of a crapshoot. I've used it before, seems to like it warmer. Anyway, gonna put about 1/4 teaspoon starter in and 1/4 cup of water. And I'll let that sit for 15 minutes to ½ hour before I use it. All right, pepperoni for pizza. It's gonna take black pepper, some fennel seeds. Take my pan, I'm gonna get those toasting up. And we're gonna use some anise. I'm gonna go add those to my toasting seeds. Now it's time for everything else, starting with salt. And I'm going to use some cure number 1, because these will be fermenting. It's going to take kind of a lot of dextrose. What that's going to do is get all that bacteria very active. I'm also going to add quite a bit of sugar, the same amount of sugar as I added dextrose. Time to add some flavor. Black pepper, white pepper, cayenne pepper, and finally some paprika. Now I'm going to take my toasted spices and just crack them. If I wanted a powder, I would have used my grinder. Oh yeah, that looks good to me. I'm going to add that to my mix. Oh, it smells really good. I'm ready to mix the pepperoni. Got my spices. And I'm going to add my starter culture. Again, this is the Flavor of Italy. It's a very fast acidifier. Should get it nice and tangy. Now this particular batch is going to be for snack sticks and for pepperoni. Figure might as well mix it once. Clean the stuffer once. I'll just change my horn size. And that way I only need 1 tester piece for the pH also. But I'm just going to mix this till it all comes together. All right, I think we're really close. That's sticking to my hand pretty good. Lifting the bowl up pretty good. And importantly, it's looking pretty furry. You can see these strands. They start to reach out. That's how I know it's done. So I'm gonna go get my stuffer and get stuffing. What I'm using here for my pepperoni is 4042 hog casing. I like to get some water in there. Definitely want to lube up the horn nice and good. Then just get that edge around and thread it on. So I'm just going to push my meat to the end of my horn. And then I'm just going to slide this out, tie a knot at the end, snip the tip, Punch a hole to let that air out. Now we're ready to go. And I do want to get these pretty tight because they are going to be drying before they cook. It's going to be a semi-dried and cooked sausage, basically, is what it is. So I'm trying to get it a little tighter than like a regular sausage would be. And I think that's probably about the length I want. So I'm just going to take a string. I'm going to use the string to kind of pinch the meat in, and that will hopefully make it nice and tight at both ends. I like to go around the back side too. Just a little extra insurance. I left enough string here that I can make a knot for tying that off. Pull a little more off, make another knot here for my next link. Same thing, come around the back side, get a knot back there too. And the second one to hold the first one tight. Make sure no air stays in there. All right, we're ready to go. Can just separate these now. Just gonna make a long one. I should have split it into two. It's gonna be a little bit ridiculously long. And I'm just going to punch some holes, paying special attention to the air pockets because I know I got a few. And you'll see when I do that, it really, casing shrinks right up and adheres right to the meat, which is exactly what we're trying to accomplish. Now I'm going to take what was left in my hopper, going to wrap it up in some plastic wrap, and that's how I will test my pH without disturbing any of my links. Take my plastic wrap. Son of a bitch, man. I even have them poked in like you're supposed to. You ever feel like things just don't want to cooperate some days? I mean, they said it clings and it's clinging, but I don't need to cling that well. Being a bit of a pain in the ass. But I got it. We're covered, we're tight. Just gonna put it in my oven because it's out of the way. I can turn the light on if it needs to be a little warmer. Well, it's been just shy of 25 hours. All right, that's where I want to be. Pepperoni. I want it to be down around 4.5 or 4.6, so nice and tangy for that American style pepperoni. My next step for my pizza pepperoni is going to be to get a weight on it, and I want to smoke it. I want to cold smoke this a bit. So I got my weight. I'll write that down. I'll write down my target weight. It's a little too warm outside right now. I'm going to put them in my dryer till this evening when I can get some cold smoke on them. The sun has gone down. It's quite a bit cooler. See, I got a nice bit of cold smoke going. You barely see the food in there. Got my pepperoni for pizza getting some light smoke. I've got my pepperoni snack sticks. Everything's cold smoking. Just using a little smoke generator. And it has an aquarium pump that's pushing air through it, keeping it going. Pretty simple setup here. Time to get these pepperonis on a scale, see how much weight they've lost. Pretty excited about the pizza these are going to make. Well, 9 days into drying at 55 degrees Fahrenheit and about 80% humidity. I'm going to take the weight this is now and divide that by its starting weight. I'm going to subtract that by 1. 21.3. That's how much weight I've lost. I was going for 20 to 25% weight loss. Closer to 25, give you a slightly harder pepperoni, but I think this is going to be perfect. I think I'm going to start cooking it. I'm going to cook my pepperoni in the oven. Got a tray of water to help increase the humidity in here. And I'm going to set my temperature as low as my oven goes, which is 170 degrees. Could do this in my smoker, doing the starting at 125 and slowly increasing it. And that would be ideal. But it's raining out right now, and rain and my electric smoker are not a good combination. So this is how I'm doing it. And I almost forgot. Sometimes I get distracted with this filming and moving the camera around and the light and all this stuff. But I am going to put a probe in here, going for an internal of 140 degrees. Well, it's been 2.5 hours and these got up to 140. And they're going straight into an ice bath to stop their cooking. It should help shrink up their casing a little bit as well. Then I'll dry them, bloom them, and they'll be ready to go. Just takes a few minutes in the ice bath then to stop their cooking. Now I'm just going to put them out on a rack so they can dry and bloom a little bit. And slice them up, give them a taste, make some pizza. That was the whole point of this in the first place. Get you in a bit. You know, pepperoni is more of a common topping on a New York pizza than on a Chicago tavern style pizza, but I really like the Chicago tavern style crust, so that's what I'm making today. I'll be using Kenji Lopez's recipe because it looks good to me. That's going to start with 300 grams of bread flour. And he says you can use all-purpose flour, but it comes out better with bread flour, so I'm going to use bread flour since I have it. And this is going to make 2 pizzas. I'm going to make 1 pepperoni and 1 Italian sausage. 300 grams bread flour. Just like my sausage recipes are in percentages, and the percentages are relative to the meat, the percentages here are relative to this flour. So I'm going to use 2.5% salt, which is going to be 7.5 grams. Roughly, because this scale, I'm not getting out my fancy scale just for this. And the same percentage, 2.5% or 7.5 grams of sugar. I'm going to use 0.5%, 1.5 grams of active dry yeast. Now I'm going to use 10% or 30 grams oil. I'm using a light olive oil, but any neutral oil should work. It's a very heavy amount of oil, but that's what's going to give us the cracker-like crust. A very thin, crispy crust. It's going to inhibit the formation of gluten, slow it down. So it's not going to be a light, fluffy, like bread type crust. More of a cracker type crust. Oh, a little bit much. Okay, that's like 11%, not 10. That'll be all right. And finally, so we're going 50% water. So it's 300 grams of flour. It means 150 grams of water. It's a very low hydration dough. Kenji says much lower than that and it's just almost impossible to work. Higher than that and you get more of a chewy dough, which is more typical of a New York or a Neapolitan style pizza. Time to go get Big Red. Got my trusty friend Big Red here. So I'm just gonna pop this on, stick my dough hook on there. Now I'm just gonna give this a mix. Just a couple of minutes, it's pulled most of the flour off the wall, the bowl. That's how I know it's good to go. Just gonna roll it around a little bit to collect the last little bit. Since this is such a low hydration dough here, I'm gonna let it sit. Put a bowl over it to keep it from drying out at all. I'm gonna let it sit for 10 minutes and help it hydrate. Then I'll knead it the rest of the way. It's been 10 minutes. I'm ready to have Big Red knead this the rest of the way. On speed 2 or 3, I'm going to give it about 5 minutes. See you in 5 minutes. Well, it's been about 6 or 7 minutes. Take off this dough hook. The dough off there. All right. Thanks, Big Red. You did a good job again. This dough is nice and soft, a little tacky, a little sticky. I'm going to just split it in roughly half. If you want to be really precise, you can use a scale, but I'm not going to worry about it. If you did the math, it should be about 250 grams each. And I'm just going to put them in the bowl. Put a little oil in here. And I'm just going to make sure they're both coated in some oil on all sides. I'm going to take a container. Now, I'm going to stick these in my refrigerator. And Kenji says 3 to 5 days. So, see you in a few days. Well, it's been about 4.5 days. My dough has definitely risen some. Now he says to sprinkle, it says semolina flour, or you can use cornmeal. I'm using cornmeal because I have it. I saw he sprinkled a little on top. Probably just to keep the rolling pin from sticking too much. And I'm going for 14-inch crust. My cutting board here is 15 inches, so I know I got to roll it out most of the way to the edge. So he says to go one direction, which I'm not good at, and just rotate it. I need to get one of those better pins, one of those tapered pins. Kenji says those give you more control, and I can totally see how. Because of the taper, you can kind of put more pressure on different parts. It's looking pretty thin, pretty close to 14. Let's see. You know, my cutting board is 15 inches. I'm at 13, so how am I this way? 13. Let's see if I can stretch it out just a little more. Not the roundest circle, but you know, there we go, 14, about 14. Now he says to leave it out on some parchment paper. Now Kenji says to leave it out overnight. I did try to get this done last night, but I was so exhausted that it didn't happen. But I'm getting up and I'm doing it first thing in the morning, and I'm really hoping that leaving that out all day will be enough. Roll out the other one here and be back in a minute. So the other thing Kenji says you can do is just give it a couple of pokes with the fork. It's a little insurance against getting your crust bubbling up. Because for some kinds of pizzas you like those air bubbles, but for this, with the cracker-like crust, we don't want any bubbles. Now I'm just going to leave these out all day, and like I said, I hope all day is as good as leaving them overnight. I think it'll work. These look pretty good. Well, got my pizza crusts out. I have a fan that's blowing. It's not really blowing on them. It's blowing over my logs that I got going here. But that little side breeze is helping to dry them out. Kenji says 12 to 24 hours, and probably only going to have like 10 to maybe 12 hours on these, but I think that fan is really helping me out. It's a little ridiculous what I got going on here, but I'm going to try to find a place to set up the camera to do a pepperoni reveal. Finally time to slice up this pepperoni for some pizza. It smells really good. You know, it's an edible casing, but I think I'm going to want to remove it before I slice it for the pizza. But let's look inside. Looking pretty good. Oh, I gotta try a little taste of this. Getting that hint of fennel, anise, licoricey almost. All right, my oven just hit 550 degrees. So I'll heat up that stone for an hour. It did get a little bit of rendering because of that, cooking it in the oven. It would have been better to cook it on the smoker starting at 125 and slowly raising it. I guess I could do that in the oven by turning it off. My oven doesn't go lower than 170, but to turn it off and let it sit, and there's ways to do this. I debated about this sauce. New York style would be like probably not a cooked sauce, but I'm making a Chicago tavern style, but only kind of because pepperoni is not really a Chicago tavern style topping. I decided to make a cooked sauce instead of a not cooked sauce. I love a New York style pie too, but since I'm going the Chicago thin style, at the end of the day I decided I'm going the thin tavern style crust. I should go the thin tavern style sauce, and the toppings, those might be mixed up a little, but that's okay. Once these garlics start to just smell a little, definitely don't want them to get on too much color. Don't want them to brown. Garlic is not tasty when it's burnt. Throw in a can of sauce. Throw in another can of sauce. Gonna turn the heat up to a little bit to like medium. Had the heat on like a medium low. One more can of goodness. I'm gonna use a 6-ounce can of tomato paste. So if you're keeping score, I had 2 14-ounce cans of sauce, or you could use 1 28-ounce can, if my math is right. And I'm adding a can of tomato paste. And these are 6-ounce can. Mix that in there a little bit. Now, I'm not usually a teaspoon, tablespoon kind of cook, so I'm going to say that looks like about a couple tablespoons of oregano. I mean teaspoons. It looks like a couple teaspoons. 2, maybe 3. So maybe a tablespoon. And I'm going to do the same with my marjoram. Going to add like, I don't know, a little less time. Maybe like half as much or 2/3 as much. But you know, you do you. Cooking is all about doing what you want. I don't know, what's that? Maybe a teaspoon granulated garlic. And I know I got minced garlic, but different garlics are going to have different tastes a little bit. All right, there's just a tiny bit in here. Just a tiny bit in this jar. It's pizza spice. I don't know what it is, but I'll tell you what it is. It does make a pretty good sauce. So whatever it is, it's going in. Same with the Italian seasoning. And I'm just going maybe a teaspoon, maybe even less than a teaspoon. But that's a little sage, a little savory. It's got some marjoram, it's got some garlic. And for heat, I'm going for, I don't know, that's what, maybe a teaspoon of red pepper, crushed red pepper. If you don't like the heat, go half that, go like a half teaspoon. And that'd probably be enough to give you flavor without giving you much heat. Take this can, and kind of rinsed out both the other cans, the other can of sauce and the can of paste. I'm just going to add that much water to it. Now I'm going to give it a healthy pinch of salt, probably about a tablespoon-ish, and I'm going to give it the same amount of sugar. Stir that real quick to knock it down. I'm going to add some red wine or red wine vinegar. I'm just going red wine, just a splash. Before this sauce can bubble again, I'm going to put a lid on it before it makes a mess in my kitchen. Look at that, it did already make a mess. I'm going to let my sauce cook for about a half hour. I'll see you when my sauce is done cooking. Time to build this pizza. I'm going to use this pizza pan as a peel because I don't have a pizza peel. I make pizza often enough to have a pizza stone, but I don't make it often enough to have a pizza peel. Genji says to flip it over because the side that was the top is a little drier. And what we're going to do, I'm just going to put some pizza sauce on here. Thing about the Chicago pizza, the tavern pizza here, is that you want a sauce all the way to the edge. See what that looks like if I spread it out with a spoon. I don't think that'll be too saucy. Certainly don't want to add any more. Man, that sauce is really good. Now I'm going to take a very light sprinkling of the Parmesan. I do want to get it to the very edge of the pie. This is freshly grated Parmesan Reggiano. Next I'm going in with grated mozzarella. You want to use a full fat, low moisture mozzarella. That's going to give you the best pizza. Now, unfortunately, I'm very sad about this. It's hard to find full fat, low moisture mozzarella in the cheese cabinet at a lot of grocery stores. Typical grocery store, you might have to go to the deli counter, which, very sad for me, means you need to shop at the store before the deli counter closes. What I'm using is a low moisture part skim mozzarella, not a full fat one. But the sad thing is all I could find at the grocery was a pre-grated. And so I don't expect to get quite the browning that I would get off of a freshly grated. After all the love I put into this pizza, including making my own pepperoni and my own sausage, I'm a little sad that I'm using the half-assed mozzarella. Now I'm going to load this sucker up with some pepperonis. Some of these last pieces kind of were falling apart on the grinder. They look more like sausage than pepperoni, but they taste more like pepperoni than sausage. I'm going to set that aside. Pizza number 2. I hope this fan isn't too loud. Preheating my oven at 500 or 550 for an hour. Started to get a little smoky in here. All right. Put my couple ladles of sauce on here. Now just a light sprinkling of this Parmesan. Now some people will freak out about putting the vegetables down under the cheese. This pizza joint, when I was a kid, that's how they did it. Veggies under the cheese and the meat on top. Now it's my favorite pizza joint, so that's how I'm doing it. And finally, star of the pie, Italian sausage. I'm pretty excited about this one. All right, let's see. Wish me luck. Uh-oh. Didn't get it very centered. That's where having an actual peel is helpful. Can I fix it with just a spatula? Uh-oh. See what's happening? This is all fucking melting down. Just gonna give it one tiny little sprinkle of some Parmesan cheese. And then tavern style pizza. It's supposed to be cut into little squares. That way you just get a little piece You ready for another beer? Helps the tavern sell more beer. And there's my amateur hour job of a pepperoni pizza. Well, got some color on the crust. Could have maybe let it go longer, but
Sauce is really good.
sauce is really good. Did you get any pepperoni yet?
No, next bite.
Here's a pepperoni video.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I'm tasting it, but I could have put twice as much pepperoni on this pizza. It looked pretty full when I put it in there, but is it cooked?
Pepperoni's rich though. It's like good balance, I guess. That sauce though, it's tangy and sweet. Balances the rich.
Pepperoni is spicier than a regular pepperoni.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, good color, but
They got a little black on this piece. That's what you want. It's thin enough that it's still crunchy.
it's
Yeah.
impressive. Let's try a middle piece here and see. We'll hold itself up.
Holds up.
Even though it's that thin,
Yeah.
it's not. It's pretty decent looking crust. It could have more black, but it's got some color
I like the heat.
from the pepperoni,
Mm-hmm. A little acidic from the. It's got like all those flavors.
from the ferment. It's a complex sausage.
Fermented.
Yeah, it's fermented. It's got a little bit of cold smoke. It's semi-dried,
Huh.
and then it's cooked.
It's like it tastes more like a pepperoni than a pepperoni would.
Yeah, it's like that's what a pepperoni is supposed to taste like.
Uh,
It's what the store-bought pepperoni is trying to be.
That's where pizza places go wrong, usually, for me.
Too much sauce.
No, too much cheese, not enough sauce.
I'm gonna wait to try this other one. It's got to be ready soon. See what the sausage pizza is all about. Yeah, I think this might be a little crispier. Like I said, still not the black. Might be cutting it a little hot. I'm seeing the cheese moving a bit more than the other one. It's funny because the whole pizza thing was inspired by the pepperoni. But I think I'm actually more excited about this Italian sausage. I'm going for the triangle, but I've got to get a middle just to give it a fair test. Ugh. All right.
That sausage is the star.
Yeah, this one just has a lot more flavors going on. Can I say I like it better than the pepperoni? It's just got more going on. Yeah, the pepperoni is better than what you're used to as pepperoni.
For me, this is just a vessel for sausage. Pepperoni pizza makes sense. Pepperoni's good on pizza. But this is just... I'm just here for the sausage at this point.
Yeah, the middle of this one's definitely not quite as stout as the middle of the other one.
Probably just like a wetter pizza from all the oil on that sausage.
Mm-hmm. And the onions and peppers below underneath the cheese.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to pick between one or the other, I wouldn't even have to think about it. This is the one. So if you haven't seen the Italian sausage video, check it out. It's right here. And yeah, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Put some love into your food. Peace.